So I guess I'll just skip down to, I know we've got to get to Q&A, to some of the reflections and challenges. So I'll go with some of the positives first. One of the things that has been amazing, and I'm sure folks have seen kind of coming out of Ferguson and Black Lives Matter and Blackout Collective, even in Asians for Black Lives, the leadership of the group is primarily queer women. I don't know. It's it's what the moment is right now, and I can't tell you how different it feels. It really is. Like, we have meetings where we have the sister Elokin who passes out, like, you know, she passes out an elixir that's like, yo, let's take care of ourselves, and that like happens at the same time that we're taking care of business. We got the babies at the meetings, and we're taking care of it. And I don't know, you know, I've been lucky to be a part of a couple of different movement moments that have happened. So there was like the World Trade stuff happening in the late 90s. Anti-war stuff in the early 2000s, and Occupy. And I can say the one thing that feels significantly different right now is that queer women are at the lead of stuff right now, and it feels substantively different. We're running into a lot of the same issues, but I can't tell you, like here anyway, it feels hella different. And that in spaces where, honestly, like the patriarchy tries to rear its head, people have been calling that shit out in really beautiful ways. And so you're getting a lot more intersectionality than I've seen before in previous movement moments. So that's one. People are moving and making connections, and they're finding capacity. Like, a lot of us are in the nonprofit industrial complex or in the academic industrial complex, people on the grind. But in these moments when people are really needing to dig deep, people are finding a way to make shit happen. I have not seen this much leadership of people. I don't know, you know, it's awesome. It's like just whomever is stepping up is making it happen, and people are really trying to default to trust, but we're also in that process really trying to, an oldie but goodie reading from Lenin, Combat Liberalism. You can't just go with the flow and make it happen. How do you hold each other accountable? So we're really dealing with that. So I'll just wrap up with the three categories of challenges that maybe might be thought-provoking as we've been doing this work. So on the ecological connection and really trying to widen the frame of the issue that's happening right now, here in Oakland, folks have really tried to bring in the economic structure as something that is big, that you need to make a connection to poverty and economics if you're going to talk about state violence, and the reason why our communities are where they're at, in particular Black communities. So how do you not just talk about police violence alone? So this gets back to my comments earlier about that this is actually a war on Black people, and the way it expresses itself is through all kinds of systems, and that the violence happens in many ways that a lot of folks who are in their liberal comfort zone, or people are like, why are people so upset and rioting, you know, don't actually see how systemic violence actually expresses itself besides in dead bodies. How does this express itself in access that people have, in the food that people have, in the housing and that people have, in the access to dignity and wealth that people have? So how you get at kind of the structural issues that are happening and how to make that ecological connection. As far as building positive power and building power, we are really struggling. There's a lot of differences right now in the group around what kind of organizational vehicle we should be moving, or what kind of vehicles this should be. So right now, decision making has been done primarily as you vote with your feet and you vote when you come to meetings. But we've been really having to get to transparency there, because obviously if our meetings aren't accessible and if we aren't really thinking about disabled folks, mentally ill folks, are folks that just struggle in different ways. How do we really provide enough access so that if you are voting with your presence, that we then make it possible for people to be there as much as possible, which has led us up to the issue of pace. The pace is crazy. This pace is really privileges able-bodied people. It privileges nonprofit industrial complex, those of us working in that, who can sometimes in our paid work make that happen. It probably privileges students. I haven't thought about the other communities it privileges this pace. We've been really trying to strike a balance between what work we do to challenge our own communities around their anti-Black racism and how much of our energy we spend responding to all kinds of solidarity calls. People are tired. But people are also still willing to go. So how do you, when you know that Black leadership is not a monolith and folks are figuring some shit out, how do you keep rolling? How do you keep rolling in a real way is a big question that we have. Finally, the last set of challenges have been around the limits of identity politics. So there is both a strength in being able to call out where we are positioned in white supremacy, but it also has its limits. So the East, there's a parcel of land right now that's public land around the lake here in Oakland, and it's actually a black developer who is trying to develop the spot, and they tried to call it affordable housing. It's not. They even lied to the Asian elders in the neighborhood and told them it was going to be affordable housing. So you've seen some crazy stuff. So what does it mean to not assume that just because you're brown that you're down? Because it's not true. Quinton, I'll get his name. I can find out. But so I think that's been one big thing. And then the other big thing is that when we're moving this fast, there has been this this dynamic that we've had here in the Bay where we're not just here to then change the hierarchical system and have black folks on top then oppressing other people or just calling the shots. So it's like this question of what does real solidarity look like? An example of that is we had Black Brunch and Black Seed folks who were doing the Black Brunch events, and then afterward, which was awesome, there was like this community event where there was food, but then after a while people were like, is it weird that like our brown brothers and sisters are cooking the food for us, and there's this, it could be weirdly transactional, it's like this gray line. And so how do you actually build solidarity and relationship in a really deep way versus just patterning yourself on a reverse hierarchy of white supremacy, because that's not what we're trying to do either.